Hi and welcome back to Dusty Book Sniffers. I'm Nicole and today I'm doing something a little bit different. I'm doing a tag video. Alright, good morning or good evening everybody. Welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for taking some time out of your day and spending it with me. If you're a new subscriber, welcome back to the channel. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and the little bell icon beside it, and then that way you're not going to miss out on any future posts at all. And if you're a returning subscriber, thank you so much for taking some more time out of your day and spending it with me. Alright, so as I said, I'm doing something a little bit different. Normally, I only put up 2 videos a week, a Monday and a Friday, but this one's going to go up on a Wednesday as a bonus video because it's a tag video. All right, so as I said, I don't normally do tag videos. I've done the newbie tag and I did that as my first video on the channel, and I'll link that up down below and you can go and check that out. This one is called a mum's tag and it was created by Kelli from Kelli Reads a lot. And so I will link her video, the original video, up down below. And this one was, this one went up on Mother's Day in the US. So I didn't see it till the Monday or the Tuesday I seen it. Or yeah, I think it was a couple of days later that I seen it. So I didn't get to do it on the Mother's Day. But I said, yeah, thank you so much for tagging me. I'll give this a go. And the questions, there's only 4 of them, and they're all related to, you know, how you get reading done and your kids and all the rest of it. So just know that these are me reflecting. These questions I'm answering as I reflect back because my kids are grown. I've got I've still got a 15-year-old, but I can assure you she does not like me reading to her. She does her own reading. So anyway, the tag's only got 4 prompts in it, and so I'm going to get stuck right into it. The first one is how do you get any reading done? So following on from what I just said, my kids are actually grown up now, so I really am not restricted by the amount of reading that I can do in this present part of my life. So I can read until the wee hours of the morning without any consequences except for work, but I work for myself, so if I want to drag my butt around, I can. But for those that remember, well, for me, I remember when I was younger, I used to try and get some reading done, and I didn't get a lot of reading done while my children were small. And for the most part, my 2 youngest ones didn't really go to daycare or anything like that. And when I had my first 2 that were young, they were in daycare, but I was working. So I didn't really have time to read a lot. And I was working for other people. So I had to be on the ball, and I had physical jobs and stuff like that. So sitting up to the wee hours of the morning was not an option for me. So, and I've only just recently got into audiobooks, and back then, I'm talking in the 90s, audiobooks were super expensive here in Australia. Libraries did not have the catalogue that they have now, and so they weren't really an option anyway, and they were on cassette deck as well, and some were on CD. So, and they were a lot of older books, like your Pride and Prejudice, your Sense and Sensibility, and I was not interested in reading those. So, they were sort of geared towards older people, not generally younger people. And so, sorry, my necklace is pulling my hair. It was distracting me. Yeah, anyway, it's undone now. I'm sorry. It was like little electric shocks at the back of my head. He was just pulling those little wispy hairs. Anyway, so I didn't really have the option to listen to audiobooks back then. Okay, my first child was born in 1993. I was 22 years old. Prior to that, I was reading a lot. I've always been an avid reader. So once I had my kids, I had to squeeze it in wherever I could. Now, my mum said to me when I first had my son that, you know, and this is still now, when you have a newborn baby, sleep when the baby's sleeping, you know, so you're able to function as a normal human being. I was actually quite blessed. My son started sleeping through the night at 5 weeks old, and yeah, so it was great. For my first child, I was very, very lucky. So, and I know that I was very, very lucky because a lot of my friends had children and it was 6 to 8 months before they slept through the night. So I was very, very lucky in saying that, I was very regimented with my routine with him as well. But anyway, for reading, when he was younger and also when my second child was born, there was 6 years difference between them. And so it was a lot easier to get reading time in, because by the time my second one was born, again, she started sleeping through the night. I think she was like 8 weeks old. And so I was able to sit up a little bit later and get some reading in. I could read while they were having their naps, although I did like to take a nap when they were having a nap, even if it was just a little power nap or whatever. But I always sort of read when I went to bed. I'd read over breakfast, and then I would read whatever book I was reading. I would read a couple of chapters out loud while they were sitting, like laying there playing on the floor and stuff like that. So they always see me with a book, and they always heard me reading and or seen me reading. And so that's how I sort of squeezed it in then. Now, you'll have to excuse me, it stopped raining here after a week and a half, and everybody is out with their lawnmowers. So if you can hear that, I do apologise. It's not much I can do about that, because I live in Queensland, and as soon as the sun comes out, the grass starts growing, and you've got to get on top of it. Yeah, so anyway, basically, I used to just squeeze it in wherever I could. I always had a book with me, and a lot of them were just like small books, just like romance books, or they were, you know, like your Mills and Boons type, not necessarily Mills and Boons, but, you know, those Mills and Boons ones, or just really small, short books. So I felt like I was achieving something. I was reading a lot of Danielle Steele back then, and Jackie Collins, you know, just trashy novels. They're always good fun. And, you know, all that sort of stuff. I was right into Stephen King and stuff like that around that time. So as my other two came along, I used to read all the time because they played together. While they were playing, I'd be reading, and that's how I sort of squeezed it all in. But now that they're older, I have the opportunity and the freedom to read whenever I want. I can read into the wee hours of the night, or the morning if I so choose, especially if it's a really good book. I have access to audiobooks, so I can, while I'm working, because I work for myself, I can do that while I'm sewing and while I'm quilting, and so I can consume books at a great vast amount. And I really enjoy it, because there's been a lot of years where I haven't been able to consume the books like I'm consuming them now. So I'm actually really enjoying this chapter of my life, being able to read more. And I'm finding that I'm a lot happier too, because I'm using it for escapism, so I'm traveling all over the place. And two, it's woken up that part of my imagination, and every day is a new adventure, or a new story, or a new tragedy, or a new fantasy, you know, like I'm just absolutely loving this chapter of my life. So yeah, basically that's how I used to get my reading in. The next one is, what do you like to read to your kids? Well, I read a lot of the children's classics, such as we had a routine, and this was, as I said, I used to read while they were playing on the mat when they were wee babies, and as they got older, they were in daycare, so they were always read to at daycare. They always had 2 or 3 stories a day, you know, where they were read to one-on-one and stuff, especially the daycares that my eldest 2 went to. The younger 2, and I also read to them as well during school holidays and on weekends and stuff like that. And lunchtime was generally the time that I used to read to them. So, and at bedtime as well. So, although my son didn't like the bedtime reading, he used to get very frustrated with it, because he was such a kid that was on the go all the time, that by the time he hit bedtime, which was 6:30 every night, like clockwork, he would have to lay down, and basically I'd read maybe 4 lines and he'd be asleep. He'd be just out for the count. So, and that was just because he was such a on-the-go hyper little kid. Subsequently, we found out that he had ADHD, and so yeah, but he slept really well. So I couldn't complain about that. 6:30, I knew that my time was over with the run and that. So I didn't really read to him at bedtime because he didn't enjoy it. But my other 3 kids loved me reading to them at bedtime. So my eldest daughter, she got bedtime stories and she got daycare stories, and then during lunchtimes when they were home with me, I would read a children's classic to them, such as, Little Women, Tom Sawyer, all those sort of ones, Black Beauty, Pollyanna, all those. I've got a whole series, like a series that I collected from a magazine, and they also came with a magazine and talked about the era and all the rest of it. I might do a flick through on that because that's from the I started collecting them before I had children, so it was the late 80s, I think it came out, from memory. No, it was, or maybe the early 90s, like the first couple of years of the 90s. So I used to read all those sort of books to them, and then my youngest two, they were home with me up until they went to school, and so they got books all the time. They were read to at nap time, they were read to at lunchtime. Anytime they wanted to, especially Savannah. Savannah was always giving me books to read to her. So I was onto chapter books pretty quick with her because she was quite bored with, kids' books. So I started reading to her, and to Nerilee, I started reading the books like Anne of Green Gables, the Chronicles of Narnia, because they're both my favourite books, and also just all the children's classics because I still had them. So yeah, so they had a vast variety of books that were read to them. And again, we did the lunchtime thing. We would make lunch together, then we'd sit down together and we would read for half an hour. So they would pick the book, and then we would read that every single day for half an hour, sometimes a bit longer, until the book was finished. And we'd talk about the things that were in the book and stuff like that. And I think that's probably where Savannah got her appreciation for books, although she was a little bit weird and carried a thesaurus around that my best friend gave to me one year, and I still had it on my bookshelf. And she carried that thing around until it fell apart. She used to sleep with it. She didn't have a teddy. She slept with a thesaurus. She's like that. She likes books. She's got about 300 books on her bookshelf, and all bought with recycling money. She recycles bottles to buy them. All right, the next one is, what are your childhood reading memories? Well, like my kids, I have the same. My mother and my grandmother read to me a lot. My mum taught me how to read by reading to me all the time. I have been told by family members that I actually started reading at a very early age. And so, so I've always had that love of reading. And I do remember, it was a different era back then too. Like, my mum was a stay-at-home mum, and my grandmother was a stay-at-home mother as well. And so they did all their work in the morning, like there was routines. And I find that I still have that routine. They did all their work in the morning, and then once they'd finished their work, they'd have breakfast and then do all the housework and everything like that. Come lunchtime, they would sit down and they would read. And so that's where I guess the habit is. And I don't remember it, but I'm guessing that they probably read to me too under the age of 5. But they've always read to me. As I got older, I didn't get the bedtime stories as much, and nor did my brother and sister, actually, because I don't remember my mum ever reading to them at the end of the day, but she used to read to us during the day, and that's probably why, because she read to us during the day. It was just bedtime, go to bed, and whatnot. But I always read when I went to bed, and then subsequently my sister started doing it, and subsequently my brother started doing it, albeit comics, it's still reading. So there's some of the memories that I have from when I was younger, and like my favorite books from when I was younger, it was Chronicles of Narnia and Anne of Green Gables. So they are definitely entrenched in my memory. And there's so many other books that I read as a young person as well, and they're just every book to me is a great book, because one, I can't write, so I'm happy to read someone else's labour of love and all the rest of it. All right, so the last one is to give a word of encouragement to other mums and caregivers. So my word of encouragement is, don't forget to take care of you, okay? And if reading is something that you enjoy, that's taking care of you, and you should take care of you, because there is only one you, and you deserve to be just as cared for as anybody else. And sometimes it comes down to self-care. So take that time, run a bubble bath, grab a book, sit back and relax with a glass of wine or your beverage of choice and put on some candles and take some time for you. So that is my mum tag. Thanks to Kelli for tagging me. I actually really enjoyed this one. I do love talking about my kids and their reading habits and stuff like that. Out of 4, I've only got 1 avid reader, but the youngest one, she is a bit of a reader, but she does a lot of fan fiction and all that sort of stuff. But I don't care, it's still reading. I don't care how she consumes it, it's still reading. But thank you so much, Kelli, for tagging me in this. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I am going to tag if they haven't already been tagged. Because I'm only new to Booktube, I actually don't know who's a mum and who isn't a mum. And that I'm still trying to get, hold of that. So I know that there's probably a couple out there that I talk to and that are mums. So I'm going to tag them, and if you are watching this video, consider yourself tagged if you're a mum, and do that. But don't forget to give Kelli a shout out for the original tag. But that's it from me today. Have a great day, everybody. I think I've prattled on enough. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the like button, and also, leave me a comment down below. How do you consume your books? Alrighty, have a great day, everybody, and I'll see you all next time.